All right, guys, welcome to another podcast. On today's podcast, we're going to discuss Rumble in Randburg that's coming up in a few weeks' time and kind of give you a little bit of insight into the background of what you guys can expect and just a little bit of a recap on the previous Rumbles that we've done. So stick around. I hope you enjoy the podcast. I am joined by Tjocky van der Merwe, aka the fifth strongest van der Merwe I know. All right. Some say he can make a spreadsheet do whatever he wants. Some say he is the most handsome man in the world, and he will tell you that his chest is the biggest you've ever seen. So he's joining us today to give us a little bit of insight behind Rumble. So Chalks, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm glad I was like your 12th guest on the show. I was expecting top 3, but I guess you can't always have what you want.
I mean, we did start the podcast together originally, way back in the day.
That was in the COVID era.
In the COVID era.
Trying to do something for the members.
And then you just got booted out of it.
Yeah.
Hey, how does that work?
I don't know. Apparently, talking about spreadsheets on a podcast is not exciting enough, so we had to get all the other guys.
I think what actually happened was we couldn't afford to pay you as much as you asked. So we had to get a different host. Someone who's not as handsome, hasn't done as many MC jobs as you.
It's tricky. I get it. I mean, but you know, if you multiply 0 times 2, you still get to 0.
Exactly. All right, guys. So we're going to go into Rumble and discuss why it's happening the way that it is this year. So first of all, a little bit of a roundup from Rumble last year. So Chalks, maybe you can take us through some thoughts behind last year and how it went.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year was our second sort of version of Rumble in Randburg, much bigger than the first year. We basically started the first year with 50 teams, capped it, tried to see if we can make it work. Last year, we doubled that capacity. We got to 95 odd teams. I think it went great. It was a well-rounded competition. We managed to get an athlete fund going, so the top 3 finishing female and male teams got money for their finishings. But just an all-round good community competition in this area. I think there is a bit of a sort of a lack of competitions, or at least last year there was. So yeah, we were keen to build on it. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We can talk about that now. But I think it was a great event. We had a great MC. Our MC had to pull out due to unforeseen reasons last minute, and Carl had to step in and just took over the role as if he was born for the mic. And that's why he started the podcast series again. So yeah, I think everything went well. We can always learn from these competitions, but there is definitely scope for Rumble to become one of the bigger comps at least in the Gauteng region over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and looking back on last year's event, I mean, obviously got a few things in mind, but is there anything specific you think that we could have changed or done better, or even maybe something that we did last year that we don't need to do, we wouldn't do going forward?
I mean, I think on the logistics and the background stuff, there's always room for improvement. We don't need to dig into that into too much detail, but that's why you sort of only escalate the competition with the capacity that you can handle, in my view. So, like I said, I wouldn't take 100 teams and move it up to 200 teams in the next iteration of that, just to make sure you stay on time, do the absolute basics right. From a programming standpoint, I think it was a very well-rounded competition. I personally think the final in year 1 was much more viewer-friendly than last year's one, just because so many people can do an assault bike and double unders and those things. And it's always fun to see an assault bike appear in a final because people tend to go out guns blazing. So yeah, I don't think there was a problem with the programming. I love the variety. I love the fact that, you know, Rebel came on board and gave us pretty much anything we wanted to do the workouts we wanted. So yeah, that's sort of my take from it. I'm sure, I mean, we went through the comments of what we can improve and what is, you know, we'd always like to improve, but when it comes to programming, I guess if you ask me, we should just run around the field for 4 events, and there should be no barbell. So that's always sort of a personal opinion on what the programming should or should not be.
100%. And I think, I mean, there's 2 points that come out of that. The first thing is the programming. We've always, we try to make that a trademark of Rumble, the outside edition. It's not really going to happen now in the in-house competition because we are limited to the number of events. But we've always tried to make that last one a bit of a race, and with a little bit of an elimination factor. Yes. Because we like the elimination, but we don't like the old school CrossFit elimination where either all the points get wiped and it's only the final that matters, or if you get eliminated, you're not eligible for the win. I mean, there needs to be
you don't even participate.
Exactly. So I think that's quite important. So that final was always a will and continue to be and is a trademark of ours, I think. And then, yeah, just on the logistics wise, I think it was managed relatively well. I think we had some difficulties here and there, but compared to previous years, it was much, much, much better than it was. And I think the most important thing when it comes to the programming is trying our best, and that's why I think we're very reluctant to do a beginners division, is we're trying to make it accessible for everyone. So our intermediate is slightly different to what you would find at another intermediate competition, but simply because, and as a gym, this has always been our mentality, if you can RX a class workout or you can RX an open workout, there's no reason you should be doing an intermediate competition. So we try and bring those movements into the programming when it comes to a competition on our side. And then maybe you can take us through why Rumble this year is an in-house competition and we don't have it as big as last year. I think you can maybe chat about the venue and things like that, but obviously a trademark thing that we're trying to hold on to with Rumble is that it's an semi-indoor event. It's not an outdoor event.
No, so I do agree with the accessibility. Just sort of first off the bat is, you want to encourage people to do the RX version no matter what, and then any other version of the competition should be for people that started out CrossFit or can really not do half the movements. I do feel like it becomes way too complicated when there's a RX intermediate and beginner division, and then there's such a big gap between RX and intermediate. I still feel like, if you make it accessible, the cream will still rise to the top. You don't need to overcomplicate programming to make a competition harder for top level athletes.
Well, that's the thing, right? And I think that's kind of it's a introspection that CrossFit itself worldwide needs to start doing. Is, in my opinion, is we're not here to make the top athletes fail. We're here to showcase how fit those people are. And the analogy that always gets thrown around is no one watches the PGA Tour to see Tiger Woods hit the ball in the water. You know what I mean? It's not trying to make it so difficult that he fails. It's to watch him drive the ball for 400 yards. You know what I mean? That's what you want to see. So it's exactly what we should be showcasing, I think, is not necessarily trying to stop athletes, but more just trying to showcase how fit they are and what the level is they can get to. And then make it accessible so that the people in the lower level can see, okay, well, I can actually do that. I can eventually get to that level without it being out of reach.
Well, that's exactly,
if I think about the last, I don't know how long I've been, 10 years of doing CrossFit, is the most fun is when you can actually compete alongside those guys. Yes, you are 3, 5, 7 minutes behind them, but you did the same workout.
Yeah.
So for me, that is the goal, and that's, like you said, that is the goal for us, is to not have to overcomplicate with too many divisions. We'd like to encourage almost all the teams to do RX. Obviously, we understand that if it's your first competition or you're new to the sport, yes, intermediate is a good stepping stone. So yes, that's sort of the reasoning for the accessibility and our thoughts. Rumble in-house this year, there was a lot going on. I mean, we opened a new gym in Bryanston in May. That was on the card since January when we started planning Rumble. We wanted to have it bigger and better than the previous years. And at some point, we sort of just realized that, we might potentially run into a situation where we don't have capacity. You don't want to neglect the gyms for the sake of a competition. And unfortunately, we are a small team, so we don't have people that can focus solely on running the competition. We are sort of, all our hands are in all of these different locations and gyms that we are running. So for me, that was a big factor, and a big factor in deciding to sort of just put Rumble on pause for a while. Obviously, the venue, we didn't have the venue we, so, I mean, we had some issues with our venue. Like you said, we like the fact that the venue was semi-indoor, the facility. We don't want a competition that is very dependent on weather and rain, given that it is in October or in September when rain can become, just a detractor. Like you mentioned, I mean, the venue, we prefer to be indoors. The venue we had the last 2 years is semi-indoor, so that's ideal. So we don't want to have it on a rugby field. We know there's competitions that run it successfully. Most of those competitions are in winter, though, or at least in, spring or the likes. We tend to be in that first week when we start expecting rain. We saw it in our first year. We had rain literally the whole weekend, and that was in November. Last year we were blessed with no rain, so maybe it's a good idea that we skip it this year. But then you are sort of bound to things out of your control. So we tried to find a venue that's indoor. We didn't find it. I think it was a good omen in that sense that we could focus solely on Bryanston. You tend to forget how much work goes into opening a new gym. For the guys that listen to Neil, it's not just walking in there and then everything is smooth sailing from the start. So in hindsight, I'm glad that we sort of just postponed. But then obviously we want to compete. We enjoy competing with our peers and the like. So we sort of took a page out of Pack Life's book. They had an in-house competition a couple of months ago. Mikey Fawcett wrote me in to do it with him. And the concept of a one-day comp for me was really cool. You do 3-4 events on one day. It's not a whole weekend. You don't need to take leave for the Friday or any of these things. And you can still have a good time. So that's how the in-house competition, the thought or the idea of it came about. It's also very cool because we're going to have it at Bryanston, which is our newest facility. So our members from the other gyms and members from the area that have signed up can see the new gym and what we've done there. And that in very long-winded answer, that's how we got to a one-day in-house Rumble event.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer for why it's an in-house event. And I think it's also a good way for us to get exposure for members that are not necessarily going to do another competition or are on the fence whether they should do another squad games or whatever, because it's quite a big stage to compete on if you're unsure. So these little in-house competitions are quite good, and I think by gauging how this one goes, I think it could be quite cool to have an in-house version, even when we are running the big Rumble at a later stage, which we are planning to do next year. Is to have an in-house Rumble at some stage for this exact event, is to give people an opportunity and exposure to competition without them having to go to a different venue or whatever it is, and obviously being one day. So let's go into what people can expect this year, but let's break it up a little bit. So let's talk first of all about the leaderboard side and the difference between RX and intermediate this year at the competition. So from a programming side, we can just basically go out there and say that the movements in the intermediate are going to feel like, to those people that have been doing CrossFit for a while, they're going to be movements that are going to feel like beginners movements, maybe something you've progressed past. And that was, again, going back to accessibility. We'd rather have as many people doing RX as possible, and we'll scale it to what's accessible to everyone, basically. So from a programming side, I think you can pretty much be sure that if you sign up for intermediate, 99.9% of the movements you'll be able to do. I mean, we have kind of programmed the workout, so you can jump in here if you want to. And then, what else can people expect in terms of a leaderboard? So that's quite important.
So we've made the teams of two. You can be male, female, male, like you said, 2 divisions. So the debate was, do we have 6 different leaderboards, or do we try and program these variants of the workouts to be as fair as possible for a male team to compete against a female team? Yeah. I think that's very exciting. So we'll have one RX leaderboard. Sure, there will be workouts, but this is what's interesting. There will be workouts that suits a specific athlete, and if you have a strong female in your team and they are slam ball cleans at 30 kilograms, for example, you would excel. But again, generally, that type of athlete that throws around a 30 like a bag of groceries would struggle on gymnastics.
Yeah.
So then your male partner would probably need to pick up slack on some of the gymnastics. So I like that dynamic, male, female, same thing. As I mentioned, male, female, you can't just pick two strong people in your team.
Yeah.
Male, generally the feeling is that they would be favored in these events, but what we've seen at these other smaller competitions, not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
So I'm quite excited to see how that plays out. I also think we're at a point now where gymnastics is not just, even in our gym, a lot of the girls do gymnastics better than the guys. So, when you get to a situation of doing 20 toes to bar, you probably have a female doing 10 of them much more comfortably than some of the guys. So it's interesting. It is a bit of a challenge for you specifically to program these variants and make sure that you can't just program 100 calories across the board for three versions, but how much is enough? How many calories?
Well, I think that's going to just come back down to, while the workouts are being tested, we'll be able to see that. But I mean, that's the reason for the testing of.
So this is exactly what, as you mentioned, this is why testing is so important. And even if you test, it depends on who you use to test. We will see. But I'm very excited. I like the fact that it's one leaderboard. There is a bit of banter between the teams. There's guys that go with their girlfriends or their wives. I mean, I wouldn't advise on it. You just experience.
Pay to see that.
Experience has taught me that much. Even though I think we'll be pretty solid because she can throw around the heavyweights and I can just run around and do a few handstand push-ups here and there. But yes, there's teams that do that. They are the teams that go male. We have a couple of teams female entered. So I'm quite excited to see how that goes. So that's the leaderboard for you.
Okay, so that's programming, that's leaderboard. And then another little caveat that we've put in there, because everyone that comes to ATG knows how big of rugby fans we all are. Chooks, myself, Nick, and obviously handsome Michael Fawcett. We've decided that we're going to break for the rugby. So, how's that going to work, Chooks?
So this is where the Excel skills come in, at least. We realized the rugby starts at 20 to 12 on that Saturday. I mean, none of us wants to miss our game against Australia, especially because I'm hoping we give them 20, 30 points. So we programmed 2 workouts, or the plan is to do 2 workouts before then, take a break, put the TV on for the rugby for all of our competitors and spectators. So we'll watch the rugby together. That happens, we'll stop at 11:30. We'll watch the rugby and then we'll kick off again at 2 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. Finish the last workout at 2 and we'll be done by probably around 4 p.m. So it is a full day. We'll start at 8. So it is a full day, but at least you'll get to watch the rugby. For those of us spectating, maybe there might be a beer, maybe not. So it'll be fun. I think that's also something new. It's, you don't want to go to a wedding or to a CrossFit competition and miss out on a Springbok game. So we're definitely going to incorporate that into our Rumble in-house this year.
100%. And then in terms of what you guys can expect vendors-wise and things like that, we've had a few inquiries from vendors. We will see if they're interested in this because of the size of the competition. In terms of apparel, there is Rumble apparel that will be available, so you can order those shirts up until the I think we said the 10th of August. So you can order those shirts on Score It. Obviously, that's not included in your entry fee. It is quite a cheap competition, compared to what most competitions are. And then we've got our Randburg in-house coffee shop, Blow & Co. They will be set up there. So they'll be there for coffee and refreshments and things like that for you guys. And then obviously, because it's there in Bryanston, there are quite a few restaurants and things above you. If you would like to go and do that and go and grab a coffee somewhere else or go and have lunch or whatever it is.
I think, like I said, I'm quite excited to see how it goes. Get your entries in and may the best team win.
So if you guys aren't sure, the competition is taking place on the 17th of August. In terms of entries, there are still a few spots available, like we just said. However, if you're not competing, come out. It's at Bryanston. It's a nice venue. Come and watch, cheer for each other. There are some teams that have some scores to settle after squad games this weekend, Riku and JP. So it's going to be a fun little competition. And yeah, just experience the new facility. We are excited to host it at Bryanston. We haven't exposed the other members to Bryanston like we managed to do with Norwood just yet. So we're hoping you guys get a nice, good day out and have a good one. All right, guys, that's it for today's podcast. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you guys can be notified of any new videos that pop up on the channel. We'll see you in the next one.